What's up, everybody? Last week it was announced that Scarlett Johansson is joining the cast of The Batman Part 2, but we didn't find out who she's going to be playing. With that, I've got my list of what I believe to be the top three options for ScarJo as she jumps from the MCU to the Batman epic crime saga. Let's dive in. I'm going to start things off with the least likely of my three picks for ScarJo as she steps into Gotham, and it's only that because of the world that Matt Reeves has built. This would fit much better into James Gunn's DCU. It's a much more, fantastical world. You got fifth dimensional imps, super babies, and flying dogs. But ironically, I think this would be damn good casting, and that Scarlet is none other than Pamela Isley, the villain, Poison Ivy. This was a popular pick when this news broke, and there was some pushback from the fans. I saw people saying that in this universe, she'd be nothing more than a botanist, turned murderer, or terrorist, something along those lines. I get that concern. Trust me, I do. We saw more of the mob boss side of Penguin in the first movie in his show with a very grounded reason for his waddle. We saw a different type of Joker also briefly in the first movie, and overall, Reeves just hasn't really dipped too far into the fantastical elements of the Cape Crusaders' history. However, I still think he could pull this off. Would it be, giant vines across Gotham and a green skinned poison ivy? No, probably not, but I'd say there's room for it to be a hell of a lot closer to that than to just a simple serial killer. Reeves could incorporate different elements of real life botany, plant neurobiology, genetic engineering, and synthetic biology, and just kick them up a notch to match his universe. It would be a bit more extreme than what he did with Penguin, obviously, but I'm telling you, I see the vision. On top of that, you have the reported love interest element to ScarJo's role, and Poison Ivy certainly fits that bill. Hell, she's the love interest for every Gothamite that she crosses paths with, and add that to the list of reasons this would just be great casting. In all seriousness, my thought process here is to use the flooding from the Riddler's attack that wrecked the slums as the sort of birth for everybody's favorite eco-terrorist, and then bring her wrath into the heart of the city. That brings us to the second name on my list, and this honestly might be the most probable situation, even if it's not my top pick. I'm saving that one for last, but with this one, it would be an adaptation of one of the Bat's best stories, Mask of the Phantasm. Yes, that's right, I genuinely believe that there's a chance that Scarlet is coming on as Andrea Beaumont, and that Matt Reeves is adapting the beloved story, emphasis on adapting. This wouldn't be a straight up live action remake of the animated movie, but more so Reeves fitting Andrea and her revenge tale into the Batman epic crime saga. It fits perfectly, in my opinion, for multiple reasons. The first being something that I already brought up in today's video: Zoe Kravitz will not be back for part 2. Selena Kyle, she's still going to be off in Bloodhaven planning her reunion with her sister, Sofia Gigante. I'm sure you can put the pieces together from there. ScarJo would step in as the love interest to Pattinson's titular character and fill that role for this movie until the cat returns to the bat. That's not a scoop, by the way. It's just that, Andrea and Bruce don't exactly have a future together after this movie, and with the dynamic on screen relationship that Rob and Zoe had, it's hard to imagine that she'll never return. With that being said, I do think that Robert Pattinson and Scarlett Johansson would make a good duo. They're just 2 years apart in age, so that's nothing to worry about. I'd say they can both match each other's talent, not something to worry about. And most importantly, Andrea is a love interest that brings a lot of Bruce Wayne with her, something that Matt Reeves has confirmed will be a focus in part 2, Bruce over Batman. That's the big reason that both Andrea and my final pick that we'll get to in just a second here are favored over Poison Ivy. Pamela could get to Bruce, absolutely. It's not that far-fetched, but she mingles with the vigilante much more than she does with the billionaire, just like the cat. Andrea also brings a new wave of Bruce's past with her, which is something that feels like it would fit into this world story like Cinderella's slipper. In case you haven't seen the Mask of the Phantasm movie, the basic rundown of Andrea is that she's an old love from college. Bruce had even proposed to her, but the underworld of Gotham got in the way of them and ultimately kept them from their dream life. The combination of the Wayne family's mob connections and the limited story for Pattinson's Bruce with a lover turned vigilante who brings some of that with her just opens the floodgates for Matt Reeves. It keeps it tight, in line with both Part 1 and the Penguin series, and continues the emphasis on the crime element of Gotham. Finally, my favorite option for ScarJo, the leader of the Court of Owls. Whether you want to call that the Judge of Owls, the voice of the court, or the Grand Master, they've gone by many names, and it's been a ton of different people across different stories. This group is one of my favorite foes for the Dark Knight, and I'd love to see Matt Reeves tackle both the Labyrinth Trap and the Talon, but this is simply something that's been set up so far in both the first movie and the spin off show. I mean, the entire plot of the first movie is basically setting up the court with the Riddler going after Gotham's elite. I'd even go as far as to say that if he'd just been looking deeper than the group that personally affected him, he might have discovered the ancient rulers of the city on his own. Then the Penguin series, that gave us maybe the most direct setup when Oz went to the courthouse and all the judges' chairs had owl shaped curtains behind them and around them. It's almost indisputable that the owls are on their way. But another fun element of this option is the duality of this role for ScarJo. It's similar to Andrea. She gets to present one thing while being another. This one's just better, in my opinion. You can play with something like, she's another Gotham elite. They have these big parties for the rebuilding of Gotham. Let her put on her charm, and then she turns cutthroat when she goes underground to sculpt the city. Now, this doesn't necessarily cover the love interest part for Bruce in part 2, but it doesn't need to because it leaves the door open for more characters to be involved on a smaller scale. For example, it might not explain, Zoe Kravitz's absence from the movie, but it would explain Colin Farrell not having a major role once again in said movie. He's already confirmed that he's barely in it, and then with that room, you can bring in another lover, Vicky Vale, Julie Madison. I don't really care all that much, especially if I get to see the Court of Owls on the big screen. Oz can get involved because he's trying to control Gotham, so it makes sense that he'd be showing up at some of the events that Bruce will be in this movie. You also have to consider the possibility that the chaos of the Riddler and the Penguin's actions in the first movie and in Penguin's show could have messed with the court structure. Maybe the Talon's going after them on top of the others who continue to meddle in their grand plans. If you really want to get crazy with this, the court being the villain of the second movie could set up the third movie of the trilogy to just be explosive. Maybe something like, Penguin, he's here trying to take control of Gotham, and he realizes he's just outmatched with the gangsters that he's been running with. So he goes to Arkham, gets some mofos from there, and then we get a big group of villains taking on the Bat in part 3. At the end of the day, I think this is the route that Matt Reeves takes if he wants to make the best Batman movie yet, and oh did he get close the first time around. This would take that noir Gotham to the next level, from the big events the court hosts, to the explosive fights the Talon brings, to the layers of Gotham that are unfolding as a detective gets to work. This is what Matt Reeves was born to do. And so that's going to do it for today's video. If there's a villain or just a Batman character in general that didn't make my top 3 picks for ScarJo and you want to see her in that role, drop your pick down in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed today's video. Smash that like button on your way out and make sure you have a great day.